on Kendrick, that would just be a little baby scarf. It could be the same scarf, but it would just be this big.
6'6" scarf on Perk.
One thing about Serge, when he looked good, he played good.
Oh, well, he looked good. Look at that thing.
Damn.
Fashion statement.
I've been on scarves since before you were born. That's an amazing line. So
Serge.
good. Woo! Make finishes. Let's talk about the Nuggets because they were playing on the second night of the back-to-back. They only had 7 healthy players, guys, and they still pulled out a win in Salt Lake thanks to this, casual little Jokic game winner. He did this in Dallas last month, too. He dropped 30, 21, and 10, and he just looks so slick about it. How hard is it to defend Big Honey?
Okay. They have had 2 crazy back-to-back wins in the last week. They went into Milwaukee shorthanded last week and won. This team is scary. I just don't know if they can do it, for a full playoff run, Perk, but they are scary.
I tell you what, Big Jokic, every time he have a matchup against, quote-unquote, a top-notch center, he brings his A game. And last night, I'm telling you, the big fella was in his bag. I'm telling you, people talking about, he need to lose weight. Oh, he's perfectly fine where he's at.
He has definitely played himself into shape. There's no question. Misrespect, Magic, Celtics, Jaylen Brown packing it in transition over MCW. Jaylen is just playing angry this year, Brian. He got all that money. No All-Star not, I guess?
Stay angry. Yeah, the All-Star thing is an issue, but even if he made All-Star, if you know Jaylen Brown, this is who he is.
I see Jaylen Brown being a Celtic for life.
I love that you keep saying that. I think
I've been a fan of Jaylen Brown.
That's what people said about you, Perk.
Nah, they didn't.
You're right. You're right about that.
He is at the top of the list for most improved players, though. He took his game to another level.
All right, we got the microphones fixed, the TV cameras are fixed, and that means we are bringing in the man who knows everything. Here is our senior insider, Andrew Wiggins. Woj, I am so glad we finally have you on the line. Huge, huge trade. Thank you for really opening our trade deadline show with such a blockbuster. Can you give us the latest on D'Angelo Russell to the Timberwolves and Andrew Wiggins going back to the Warriors?
Yeah, Rachel, those were conversations that picked up again, after Minnesota did the deal with Atlanta and Houston the other day. They've got, a lot of it had been built around, Rachel, number one, how much salary Minnesota would be taking on, and then number two, what the draft pick protections would be. And so that 2021 draft, that Minnesota pick now going to Golden State is protected to number 3. And if it doesn't convey that year, if they're in the top 3, that pick becomes unprotected in 2022. And I think for the Warriors, Rachel, they know they're going to have a high pick in this coming draft. And they're going to have a chance to get one of the very best players. But this is not a deep draft. And I think getting that Minnesota pick the following year had great appeal to the Warriors, and they were able to get that deal done. Gerson Rosas, since he took over as the president in Minnesota, he had targeted D'Angelo Russell. He chased him in summer free agency and stayed on him throughout this year. He has wanted to pair him with Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns wanted to have D'Angelo Russell as his point guard, and now he has him, and Andrew Wiggins goes to Golden State. And I think what will be interesting for Wiggins, Rachel, is, they're going to ask him to play less of a role, have less of a burden than he had in Minnesota. And so you'll see how he responds to maybe taking more of a, especially on offense, taking more of a secondary role with all the great guard talent they have on the Warriors. And I think for the Warriors, they felt in the end that this was their best chance to get the most value for Russell, because there wasn't a team out there who had wanted D'Angelo Russell in the way and really needed a point guard the way that Minnesota did.
Yeah, and I always think that that's sort of a 2 for 2 because we saw how unhappy Karl Anthony Towns was getting. Gerson Rosas was dealing with his star player being visibly, publicly saying that he didn't like the direction this team was going. So obviously, not only bringing D'Angelo in is a boost on the court, could help shore up Karl Anthony Towns as well right now.
That's right.
Very interested in what you said about the Warriors and Andrew Wiggins. Maybe it's a Markelle Fultz situation. You take the guy out of the situation where there was all that pressure on him as being that #1 pick and where things didn't go well. Maybe he does become a different kind of player with a different kind of role. I want to ask you about the Knicks as well, Woj, because earlier today you and Ramona Shelburne reporting that CAA agent Leon Rose going to be the next team president of the Knicks. How did this come about, Woj? And I appreciate, by the way, he keeps looking at his phone in case there's another major trade he's going to break on this show. But until that happens, tell me about Leon Rose.
Well, I think Jim Dolan has known Leon Rose for years, and he has been one of the elite agents in the NBA. He's based in the metropolitan New York area. He's had, a number of his clients on the Knicks throughout the years, including Carmelo Anthony and the first client he ever had, Rick Brunson, who had a significant career with the Knicks. And I think Jim Dolan, he tends, when you look at his history of hiring, to go with people he knows and has some level of history with. He's gone away from that at times, but they looked, and I think Dolan looked at New York at Rob Pelinka with the Lakers, and obviously what Bob Myers has done with the Warriors is something of a model. But remember this too, whether it was Bob Myers in Golden State or Rob Pelinka with the Lakers, what this hasn't been is a pipeline of players from their former agencies.
Right.
That's not how those organizations work, and that's not necessarily how this is going to work. This isn't college recruiting. This isn't, you just go out and bring in the guys who you have relationships with. It's obviously much more complex. They have a belief that Leon Rose can put a structure around him, can put an organization together. And listen, he's got great relationships. He's well respected around the league. You saw the New York Mets make a similar hire from a baseball agent from the same firm. So Leon Rose is going to be the next president of the New York Knicks.
Well, you and I both like Leon a lot. We think he's very smart. I wish him well in that situation. Woj, thank you so much. We will be glued to our phones waiting to hear from you throughout the day. In the meantime, let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. They agreed to send 3 second-round picks to the Warriors in that package for Alec Burks, Glenn Robinson III last night. Perk, I have thought Philly was maybe the biggest story going into this trade deadline because they had the highest expectations. They have met them the worst of any team in the league, and they needed to make a change. Do you think this does enough to address their shooting concerns?
No, I don't. I don't love this. I mean, they had to do something, obviously. I'm a fan of Alex Burke. I don't know, obviously, what Glenn Robinson has to bring to the table because he's not battle tested. When you're talking about a contender, when you're talking about a team that you're talking about wanting to go to the finals or possibly winning the championship, you have to bring guys in there that are battle tested, that has already been through the war. And I don't think these guys are solving the problem. I think it was just something that, hey, let's try it out. It's trying it out, and I'm not impressed by this at all.
I know I'm supposed to talk about the Sixers here, but I'm still thinking about this Warriors trade. I'm sorry.
Producer Steve has worked so hard.
I'm sorry, Steve. I heard what Woj just said there. I don't like the idea of waiting for next year for the pick because the Warriors or the Wolves have the third worst record in the league right now. You have to assume that they're going to get better next year. I would have really wanted to have a 2020. I would have wanted their 2020 pick, even if it was top 3 protected. I would have rather had the opportunity to have a top pick this year and next year. I'm not crazy about that. But okay, the Sixers just didn't have. We haven't even gotten to the Grizzlies Heat trade yet. The Sixers didn't really have a lot to trade. They had a very low threshold of what they were going to be able to do. They made it clear to teams who were calling them in the last few weeks, we're not going to trade any of our top 4 or 5 players. We're not trading Tobias Harris. We're not trading Al Horford. They needed to upgrade without giving up much, and they got 2 guys on minimum contracts. Guys on minimum contracts are typically on minimum contracts for a reason. That said, Alec Burks could help them win a single playoff game here or there.
Look, it was through the buyout market that they got Danilo. I've got Danilo Gallinari on the brain right now.
Marco
Bellinelli, right? It's through the buyout market, right? That they got guys who, by definition, as you would say, hey, they were on the buyout market for a reason, but they changed.
That's a fair point,
right? They changed their course and trajectory that year.
Looking at what the Miami Heat have done, where they've picked up 2 solid rotation wing players, the Heat. And you look at the Sixers, and they're competing to try to beat the Bucks. I think you would say that the Heat completely routed them in that group.
Well, but this is why this is hard. This time of year, this day is where we see how hard this job is. And you can be someone like, I think Elton Brand is really smart, has certainly worked his way up to get that job in the front office, made some very good decisions so far for the Sixers, but it's hard. And maybe not every decision is as good or right or turns out the way you would want it to.
It's easy for us to sit here.
It's easy to sit here.
I
But that's
agree.
what distinguishes the Miami front office. So far, the Clippers front office. There are elite front offices, Oklahoma City, in this league, and there are all kinds of days of the year where we talk about who the very best players are, and we talk about Kevin Durant.